Hello everybody, Killer Ones in here, and today I will be doing Web Deku was Tristan Part 7. So, in the last part, Deku just basically got revenge on Bakugo for ruining his life. Now, continuing the story, after everyone's battle trial, Deku would have been called to the principal office. Because, scoring someone to the wall is not good. Him arriving to see Principal Nezu and All Might there, them telling Deku to sit down, which he does. As Principal Nezu would have proceeded to ask Deku about his, relationship with Bakugo. Since going back to the cameras, Deku said that Bakugo ruined his life, which Deku would just tell both Principal Nezu and All Might about his quote-unquote relationship with Bakugo. You know how Bakugo bullied him when they were young, and how Bakugo caused an accident that changed Deku's life, or should I say ruined Deku's life. As after explaining to Principal Nezu and All Might, they would have understand why Deku basically hate Bakugo. Now after that, Deku would have went back to class and continued his school day. As whenever it ended, Delia would have walked up to Deku and tell him that he owes her an explanation, which Deku would have been confused by at the beginning, as he remembers that he promised Delia that he will tell her about his, past with Bakugo. Him doing so, as that would be the end of that day. The next day, Aizawa would have told Class 1A that they need a class representative, which, after voting, Delia would have become the class representative and Momo would have become the vice representative. If you're wondering why Deku isn't the representative of Class 1A, yeah, after seeing his, brutal fight with Bakugo and his personality change, yeah, even though everyone knows that he is the strongest guy in the entire class, they won't pick him, or vote for him. As let's just time skip to when it is time for the USJ event, with Class 1A having to get on a bus to go to the USJ. And on the way there, Asui would have asked Deku what his quirk truly is, which Deku would just be confused by. Her saying that Deku's quirks are Hellblaze and Full Counter, not creating swords, or weapons. Him just basically telling Asui that he didn't actually create a weapon, he just manipulated his Hellblaze to look like one. As they would have arrived at the USJ, them leaving the bus to find that the hero 13 is at the entrance waiting for them. But before they went into the USJ, 13 would have noticed that one of them is, missing. Which Aizawa would just tell 13 that Bakugo is not with them and that he is at Recovery Girl, since, he was stabbed by Deku. As 13 would have started her speech, her telling Class 1A that even though their quirks are very strong, they are also very dangerous, and that if they don't use it properly, they can actually kill someone. Her giving an example of, her quirk, with the rest being the same, but while 13 was doing her speech, Deku would have had a gut feeling telling him that they are going to basically die. Deku being, of course, confused. Him walking over to Delia and whispering to her asking if she has a gut feeling, which Delia would just confirm saying that she also have a gut feeling telling her that she is basically about to die. Deku, after hearing that, he would have told Dahlia that they should be on guard, which they do. With Aizawa seeing that Deku and Dahlia is basically always looking around, he would have been a bit confused, him walking towards both of them and asking what is going on, which Deku would just tell Aizawa that he has a gut feeling telling him that he is in danger basically, with Dahlia also saying the same thing. Deku asking Aizawa if he has that feeling or not, which Aizawa would simply say no, him telling both of them that they need to concentrate on class, or well, pay attention to what 13 is saying. Him just walking away thinking that that is a bit weird. But even though he thinks that that is weird, he would have kept that in mind, as whenever they got into the USJ, that was when a portal would have appeared, well, in the middle of the USJ, as a lot of villains would have started to appear all around the USJ. Aizawa thinking, oh, so that was what they're feeling. Him telling 13 that she needs to protect the students. Him immediately putting on his, well, goggles and jumping into action. Which, Deku being Deku, he would have known that Aizawa cannot last long against all those villains. But before Deku can do anything to help Aizawa, that was when Kurogiri would have appeared all around Class 1A, him trying to, split up Class 1A. But before he can actually do that, Dahlia would have shouted, "Everyone, hold your breath!" Everyone being, of course, confused, as Dahlia would have put both of her hands on the ground, with the ground being immediately turned into quicksand. But that was when most, if not all, of Class 1A, including 13, would have been covered in Kurogiri's darkness. Well, everyone except for Deku, since he full countered his way out of it. Him turning around to see no one except for Kurogiri, him being of course confused, as before he can do anything else, multiple stone towers would have shoot out of the ground, with Dahlia and most of Class 1A appearing from the ground. This, of course, surprising both Deku and Kurogiri. But Deku would have noticed that not everyone is, well, there. Him asking Dahlia where the rest of the class is, which Dahlia would just apologize saying that she couldn't save everyone. But 13 would have just told her that she did a great job, as Kurogiri would have tried to teleport everyone away again, but he would have been stopped by 13 using her quirk, her just basically sucking in all of Kurogiri's darkness, as Kurogiri would have did the same thing he did in the anime, putting a portal right in front and behind of 13. This making 13 basically tear herself apart. But unlike the anime, someone would have helped, and by someone I mean Dahlia, because she would have basically created a stone wall behind 13, and well, helping her reduce the damage. With Dahlia immediately using her other hand, she would have manipulated the vines around Kurogiri to basically wrap around him. Her also telling Ida to, well, go and find some help, since she did save Ida from Kurogiri's, well, portal splitting, or you know what I mean. Him saying that he will not go and that he will not leave his friends behind. But Dahlia would just yell at him, saying that if he doesn't go, then everyone here is going to either die or captured. Which, after hearing that, Ida would immediately rush towards the entrance, or well, exit. Kurogiri seeing that, he would have tried to stop Ida. But before Kurogiri can actually go and stop Ida, he would have been stopped by 13 and the rest of Class 1A. them basically doing the same thing they did in the anime. After that, Dahlia would have asked Deku what they should do next, her turning around to find no one there, and, well, being confused, as she would have walked over to the staircase and looked down, her finding that Aizawa and Deku are fighting side by side. Now, over with Deku and Aizawa, they would have been fighting villains while basically talking, with Aizawa asking, Midoriya, why are you here? I'm here because you are not supposed to fight multiple villains at the same time. You specialize in quick captures, not group fighting, especially long fights. I appreciate your worries, but I am a pro hero and your homeroom teacher. It is my duty to protect all of you. Duty or not, you still have limits. As that was when one of the villains would have tried to sneak up on Aizawa, him trying to, take down Eraserhead. But Deku would have saw that, him immediately rushing in and punching the villain in the face. As another villain would try to fire his, quirk at Deku. With Deku being taking it off guard, he would try to basically block it. But before the attack lands on Deku, a stone golem would have appeared right in front of Deku, Deku being confused as the stone golem would have taken the hit. As more and more stone golems would start to appear from behind Deku, Deku looking up to see Dahlia making more and more stone golems. Him immediately turning around to Aizawa and using his darkness to wrap around Aizawa, him saying, Sorry Aizawa, but we are not about to lose you. Him immediately jumping up and landing on top of the staircase, basically right next to Dahlia. Him putting down Aizawa and Aizawa asking, What do you mean lose me? Look, the villains are somehow enhanced. Their quirks are a lot stronger than they used to be. What does that even mean? How do you even know that? I just have a gut feeling, alright? But if we lose you right now, then we are all going to die. Do you understand? The only thing stopping them from using their quirks is you, Aizawa. So if we lose you, we are all going to lose. After saying that, Aizawa would have basically understand. As Deku would have said, Dahlia, protect Aizawa. Aizawa, continue to cancel quirks. And I will go down and fight the villains. You got it? Which Dahlia just nods, her saying, Don't worry, my stone golems can help you also. Thanks. As Deku would have jumped down and fight more villains. Now, over with Shigaraki, he would have saw that Aizawa is, basically canceling quirks, while Deku and Dahlia are basically taking out every single villain. With Shigaraki, of course, getting annoyed, him saying, Nomu, kill that Eraserhead! With the Nomu immediately jumping towards Eraserhead, or Aizawa. Deku seeing that, he would have immediately jumped in front of Aizawa to block the incoming attack, which he does, this sending Deku flying back, as the Nomu would continue to try and hit Aizawa. But Aizawa would have basically jumped back, as Dahlia would have said, Heavy metal! Her entire body turning into steel, or metal, as she would have stood right in front of Aizawa taking multiple hits from the Nomu, her immediately cocking back her arm and punching at the Nomu, which would have basically done nothing to the Nomu. The Nomu immediately smacking Dahlia away, her immediately putting her hands on the ground and trying to restrain the Nomu, as a lot, and I mean a lot of vines would have shoot out of the ground, it wrapping itself around the Nomu, which the Nomu would just simply shrug it off like nothing, it continuing to run towards Aizawa, but that was when Deku would have rushed in and tackled the Nomu back towards the stairs and, off of it, them landing back onto the ground as Shigaraki would have yelled, Nomu, kill that brat first. as the Nomu would have immediately grabbed Deku by his face, it throwing Deku aside with Deku crashing into a building, him landing back on the ground and getting back up, as he would have saw that the Nomu is rushing towards him immediately grabbing the sword he already created, and also creating 4 more spears using Rebellion. Also, if you were wondering when Deku created that sword, he created that sword when he used full counter on, well, Kurogiri's portal. Now, Deku after doing that, he would have immediately rushed towards the Nomu as well, him basically ducking down to his left and stabbing his sword into the Nomu's right leg, him spinning around and jamming 2 spears into the Nomu, one being the Nomu's right arm, the other being the Nomu's left shoulder, with the Nomu immediately turning around and trying to punch at Deku, but Deku would just basically slide under the Nomu, or well, between the Nomu's legs. And while he was sliding under the Nomu, he would have jammed one of the spears into the Nomu's left leg. And whenever Deku got back up, he would have stabbed the final spear into the Nomu's left arm. But the Nomu having to feel no pain, it would have smashed Deku across the face, this sending Deku flying away, as whenever Deku landed back onto the ground, he would have immediately leaped towards the Nomu, him charging his right arm with Hellblaze, him immediately smashing his right arm into the Nomu's, well, stomach, it basically doing nothing to the Nomu, with the Nomu immediately grabbing Deku by his face again, it slamming Deku's face onto the ground over and over and over again. But whenever the Nomu let go of Deku, Deku would have immediately fired a wave of Hellblaze into the Nomu. But to Deku's surprise, the Nomu would just simply walk right through the Hellblaze, it grabbing Deku by his legs and throwing Deku over the USJ. Well, not over, I mean across the USJ, with Deku having to crash into a mountain, him opening his eyes to see that the Nomu is about to basically land on him. Deku, after seeing that, he would have immediately dodged out of the way, with the Nomu landing right next to Deku. And since Deku is still recovering from the Nomu's last attack, the Nomu would have easily grabbed onto Deku and basically beat him up. And while that was happening over with Shigaraki, Kurogiri would have appeared right next to him saying, "Tomura, you cannot kill that kid." "Really? Why?" "Because he is one of the reasons why we came here." "Oh, so he's that brat that we need blood from?" "Yes." "Huh. Okay then." "Nomu, don't kill that brat. Knock him out." Which the Nomu would just listen, it grabbing onto Deku's face and basically slamming it onto the ground, with Deku being half conscious, as that was when a lot of stone golems would have appeared right next to the Nomu, them basically trying to beat up the Nomu, which doesn't work. Shigaraki seeing that, he would have yelled, "Nomu, kill that girl!" Him pointing at Dahlia, which Dahlia knows, as the Nomu would have immediately jumped towards Dahlia, with Dahlia seeing that, she would have used heavy metal to basically protect herself, her jumping back as the Nomu would have landed right in front of Dahlia, them basically having a battle, with Dahlia going blow for blow with the Nomu. But since Deku is stronger than Dahlia, yeah, Dahlia is losing to the Nomu. Aizawa seeing that, he would have also tried to help Dahlia, him activating his quirk on the Nomu. But the Nomu would simply be not affected, since its quirk is shock absorption and regeneration, not super strength. Aizawa, after realizing that the Nomu doesn't have a strength-enhancing quirk, he would have also rushed in and tried to restrain the Nomu as well. But the Nomu would simply smack Aizawa across the face, thus destroying the goggles that Aizawa is currently wearing. With the Nomu grabbing Dahlia by her face, it would have thrown Dahlia across the USJ as well, her landing right next to Deku. But before the Nomu can go and finish off Dahlia, Shigaraki would have ordered the Nomu to basically kill Aizawa. As over with Deku, he would have just saw that Dahlia had just landed right next to him. Him seeing Dahlia drop out of her, well, heavy metal, with Deku having to use most if not all of his remaining strength to get back up and crawl towards Dahlia, he would have arrived right next to her and asked, Dahlia, are you okay? With Dahlia not responding, since she is unconscious, but Deku doesn't know that. Him grabbing onto Dahlia and asking again if she is alright or not, which she doesn't respond again. As Deku would start to think to himself, damn it, why can't I protect the things I care about? Why? Why am I so weak? Why? As Shigaraki would have yelled, Oi, brat! You have two choices. One, surrender to us and we might let all of you live. Two, if you don't surrender to us, then we will kill every single one of you. But Deku would have basically not listened to Shigaraki, since he is too busy blaming himself for not being strong enough to protect the ones he cares about, or should I say Dahlia. As inside Deku's, well, mind, something would have awakened, and that was when Deku would have released a lot of bloodlust and a lot of darkness, him exploding with rage and, well, wrath. And whenever Deku did that, every single one of the villains there would have immediately grabbed onto their own chest, with Shigaraki also doing the same thing, him saying, My insides, they're burning, I can't breathe. As Deku would have put down Dahlia and stood back up, with everyone seeing that half of Deku's face is covered with darkness, and Deku's eyes had just turned pitch black. Now, I know you guys are going to hate me for this, but I would have to split the USJ incident into two parts, meaning that will be the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please like, comment, and subscribe. That will be amazing, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!